Hello everyone, welcome to Production Music Live. This is João. I'm doing a follow-up on my previous video where I showcased the new Serum Techno pack preset and MIDI pack, and there were some questions about one of the presets I used that sounds like this. Pad LFO with modulation. And in this video we are going to learn how to create that preset from scratch. So this is a very interesting preset because it allows us to do something that usually takes more time and work, which is automating the LFO rate that is controlling the filter, the volume, or whatever you want. So usually we have to, once we map the LFO to some parameter, then if we want to have different rates, then we have to use an automation to automate the values of those different rates. But what if we use something else to control this rate? And that's exactly what we are doing here. We are using the velocity to control the rate of LFO 3 that it's controlling filter cutoff and volume of the sub oscillator. So this allows us to have on the same clip without any automation different LFO rates just using different values of velocity, just like I did here. I'm going to solo the track so you can listen. Okay, cool. So the only thing that's controlling LFO rate is the velocity. And it's much easier to work this way because you don't have to use any automations. Okay, let's start by duplicating this track. We're going to initialize this Serum preset. And then we are going to start recreating what we did in the previous track. Let's start with oscillator A. Let's load the basic Moog wavetable, adds 4 voices of unison, a little bit less to tune. Let's decrease the randomness so we have a little bit more control. And let's check how it sounds when we change the wavetable position value. Okay, this is a nice parameter to modulate, so let's start by going to the matrix and using this note on random value to control oscillator A wavetable position. Let's not make it very powerful, let's just add a little bit so it doesn't change a lot. So what this means is that every time I press note on, every time I hit a key, wavetable position is going to be slightly different from the previous one. After that, we are going to use LFO1 on a very slow rate, and we are going to use that LFO to control the detune amount, just a little bit. And we are going also to use this LFO to give it a little bit extra modulation, controlling the wavetable position of oscillator 1. Alright, let's keep on adding layers to this sound. Next, we're going to use the sub with a saw waveform, and we are going to slowly see how this blends with the already audible oscillator. Of course, you can use oscillator B for this instead of the sub oscillator. That way, you can even tune make a chord directly more harmonic sound, but that's not what we are looking for. So the sub oscillator is more than enough to get what we need done. And then we are going to give it a little bit of stereo field, increase the stereo field by using LFO2 to control the panning. You can adjust the speed, but I think this is more than enough, maybe a little bit slower. Right, let's keep going. Since this is pad sounds, then we need to work on our envelopes and make the attack a little bit slower, so the sound increases in level and doesn't just start at full volume when I press the key. Increase the release as well, so when we stop holding the key, the sound stops gradually. Maybe a little bit more release. Okay, let's go for the filter. We're going to use a low pass 12 dB per octave filter. Of course, we need to put everything going through the filter, at least whatever's playing, which is the sub and oscillator A. Yeah, and this movement that I've been simulating with the mouse can of course be created using an LFO, and that's exactly what we are going to do next. Before, let's just add a little bit of drive and a little bit of fatness. So let's start adding modulation to the filter. For that we are going to use LFO3. Let's drag it in. And let's use this also to control the sub level. And let's tweak a little bit of these curves on the LFO so to make it a little bit faster. Let's just make the modulation on the sub oscillator a little bit more audible. And now, for the fun part, we are going to use our velocity, which is the strength or the power that I hit the keyboard notes with. And that velocity is going to translate into LFO rate speed. So let's drag the velocity into the LFO rate. We want triplets and dotteds. We want everything so that we have a lot of different values. And right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start playing my MIDI keyboard, and sometimes I'm going to hit the notes harder and other times I'm going to hit the notes softer, so you can hear the velocity controlling LFO rate. Right? And if it's not mono, if it's poly, you can even have two different rates at the same time. So one of the notes is still going to be playing with his own LFO rate, and then we can introduce another note which is going to trigger a different LFO rate. Let's try that. Let's start with the fast one and then the slow one at the same time. right? So you can get a lot of complicated rhythms happening just using this technique. And it's really, really fun to use because you don't have to worry about any automation or any of that stuff. Before we move on, let's just add a little bit of smoothing. Okay, so that the LFO controlling our two parameters is not clicking or anything. It's very important, the smoothing. Okay, and before we move on and listen to the preset inside the track, let's just go for the effects and add a little bit of dimension expansion, which is stereo enhancer. Let's add delay, maybe a dotted one, and ping pong, a little bit of filter. You can add a little bit of compression. Okay, to control it a little bit more. And let's have a long reverb. In the Ableton sides, we only have a sidechain compressor and we have an EQ in mid-side mode, taking a little bit of the low frequencies in the stereo part, in the side part, and adding a little bit of high mid frequencies. And on the mid part, we are just taking away the low frequencies. So let's listen to how it sounds. This is the MIDI file that I created, that I just recorded. So as you can see, different velocity values after this modulation that we created will be translated into different LFO rates, and that will be very, very audible because this LFO is controlling filter cutoff and is controlling one of our oscillators level. So there are some other things that we can do. We could add another layer, an octave up, an octave down. We can use this oscillator B to create a lot of stuff. We can even add a little bit of noise. Let's try that. Of course, if you want something cleaner, then noise off. But I think the noise can add a lot of grittiness and it sounds good. All right, and that's it. You can use this velocity to LFO rate trick to control a lot of stuff, and it can be very, very interesting and produce a lot of good results that you can instantly use in your track. And for me, the main advantage of using this technique is that you don't have to go into automation to edit the LFO rate values. You can very fast and very simply edit those values just using velocity. And of course, that means that when you're playing live, you can have an instrument that very easily gives out different types of sounds just by translating what you are doing on the keyboard. And that's very, very interesting and very easy to do. All right, that's it. I hope that you enjoyed and learned something. This project that I'm working on was created using only MIDI files and presets from this Serum Techno Pack Volume 2, so you should definitely check it out if you like this type of sound. There are a lot of heavier and more aggressive things, but there are also a lot of melodic and smoother stuff in the pack, so go check it out. Once again, I hope you enjoyed and learned something from this video. I'll see you in the next one.